Hi everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to HED Talks. We're doing something that's never been done in HED Talks before. All right, what we're doing is we're starting a brand new series. And you know how we do review? We do our review. We never do it the first day of a new series because it's a new series. However, we're going to do things a little bit differently today because understanding the last series is imperative to understanding the new one. Does that make sense to anybody?
Sure. Yep.
Oh, wow. Good. So who did we do last week?
Darwin.
Yes, we did Charles Darwin. So we're going to do a quick review because he's our lead up to what we're talking about today, which is?
Evolution.
Not just evolution.
Human.
Yes, human evolution. All right, so we remember quickly from last week, Charles Darwin, his parents were very interesting, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad was a what?
Doctor.
Yeah, and a financier, and so he was wealthy in his own right, but so was his mother. Who was she?
She was a Wedgwood.
A Wedgwood, yes. So she's an heiress. So Charles Darwin's parents were very, very wealthy. And we learned last week that he went to school originally to be what?
A priest.
Originally to be a doctor.
No, he went to Austro.
Yes, remember, he went to be a doctor. His father wanted him to follow in his footsteps. And what did he do when he had to see his first surgery?
He fainted.
He didn't faint. He was very ill, and then he ran.
Oh, yeah. That's
He
as bad
ran
as
and
fainting.
ran and ran, and he never came back. That was the end of that. And then he went to seminary school. Not his choice. Who chose that for him?
His father.
Yeah, his father. Yeah, his father was trying to make choices for him. However, so his father's making choices for him, and none of them are really working out, are they?
No.
So he is a young man, kind of, what's that? Oh, there he is without a beard.
Yeah.
He's a young man, and he doesn't really know where to go. He's kind of
Loose ends.
at loose ends. Thank you, Effie. That's a perfect way to describe it. When opportunity knocks, and he gets an invitation to do what?
Sail on a boat.
Sail on not just any boat, but the Beagle. And he's invited because he is a English gentleman who is a scholar. Very unusual qualifications to be on board a ship. But the reason why he was invited was because the captain, too, was a gentleman scholar. Do you remember what Captain Fitzroy was well known for? What did he invent?
I can't remember.
The barometer.
Oh, the barometer?
The barometer, and he is the forerunner to meteorology. So he was a scientist in his own right. He's a scientist in his own right. So Charles Darwin has a fascinating life all on his own, but he also interacts with all kinds of really fascinating people. In addition to his parents, he is accompanying, he becomes Admiral Fitzroy eventually, who is the first meteorologist. He invents the barometer, but he's also on board with an artist because the artist is going to draw pictures of the different species, right? Do you remember the artist?
Conrad Martinez. The artist.
Yes, and so this man is also famous in his own right for his renderings.
Yeah.
Now, who remembers how long the trip was on the Beagle?
5 years.
5 years. They're out for 5 years. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Do you remember? Darwin was sick the whole time?
Yes.
The whole time. He never got his, he never got his sea legs. Yes, he spent all the time on sea. He spent really over the rails. So he is out finding some really fantastical things out on this voyage, and one of the ones that really stuck out to us was, do you remember the cute, adorable sloth? You know, the little sloth, you know, those cute little sloths that everybody loves now, and you cuddle up to them. Well, the skull that they found was the size of what?
Dinosaur.
An automobile. It was the size of an automobile. And the perspective of the tree sloth and the remains that they found is this.
Wow.
Not so cute, not so cuddly. Yeah. Yes. And then you remember too, I'm sure, that when they were in Africa, he found impressions of fossilized seashells. Where were they?
12,000 square.
Yes, yeah. And it was just amazing that they should be there, because what was the accepted age of the earth?
6,000.
6,000 years old was the accepted age of the earth at that time. So it was really interesting that all of these things could have been happening in such a short period of time. He's best known for having done research where? Galapagos Islands, and one of the things that he brought away from that, aside from the tortoises that we looked at last week, were anyone remember?
The fact that each island had this different.
Yes, had different species of the same animal. In particular, finches, and these are actual renderings from that time. Mm-hmm. These are the finches, and you'll notice that their beaks are very different, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. And then we took a look at the journal entry, and again, I put this in. He did not put that in, and I wrote it in red so you would know, but the rest of it is from Darwin's journal, and this is where he starts to get the idea of a common ancestor, and that's what we're going to be going into today. All right, this looks like what? Family tree. That looks like a family tree. Yes. All right, so like Bob said, what he's finding is in this cluster of islands, it's in a cluster, and yet every single island there is a tortoise, for example, that has a different adaptation, a finch, for example, that has a different adaptation. And it's to help them what? Survive, exactly, that's the word, survive. So they're out for 5 years, and this is how far they went. Isn't that amazing?
Good God.
Yeah, that's the route that they took. Now, along the way, do you remember from last week? Every time Charles goes out on land, he brings back a whole bunch of samples and specimens, and he started to clutter up the beagle, and the crew was getting annoyed with him. So he had to package it all up and send it off to England, and it's appearing at scientific conferences with his notes. So they're viewing his specimens, reading his notes, and he is becoming what?
Famous.
He is becoming famous, he's becoming respected, he's becoming thought of as a scientist. Now he's got some respect. Whereas before this, he had no direction. But now he is a man respected in society. So he did what?
Married.
He got married. This is Emma, and Emma was very supportive of him as he continued on with his work. Do you remember who Emma is?
First cousin.
She's a Wedgwood too. Yeah, so they're very well off.
First cousin?
Yeah.
First cousin, yes.
Yeah.
First cousin.
We don't,
It was not that uncommon back then.
no, I know, but we don't do that now.
We don't do that anymore because we know now
Yeah.
that that's
It's
not
not
a good idea. But they didn't really realize that then. It wasn't that uncommon. So she is devout to her faith, and as her husband, who she's very in love with and devoted to, is exploring these ideas, it's leading him down a path that is suggesting that what we know from the Bible, how long did it take God to create everything? 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. So these things that he's exploring, that he is digging into, are contradicting what?
The Bible.
She's terrified, and she's frightened, and she tells him, I won't be with you for eternity. If you continue down this road, we will not be together for eternity. And that's what she had imagined. And he loves her too. He absolutely loves her, loves their children, and doesn't want to bring this on to them. Remember, we talked about the anonymous pamphlet that was published. In 1844, there was an anonymous pamphlet suggesting that everything developed in a natural way and not a divine way. And what happened when that book came out? The religious community pounced on it, and who else did? From the very top.
Pope. The king, the Pope, everybody.
Queen Victoria.
Oh, Queen
Yeah,
Victoria.
it was Victoria, yes, 1844. So Victoria comes down really, really hard on that, and so she is very, very quick to condemn it. So here's Emma pleading with her husband, I'll support you in what you decide, but please, please, please don't do this. But he has friends, right? He's developed connections and relationships, and one of his friends is a botanist. So what do you think the botanist is saying to him?
You're on the right track.
You're on the right track, keep going. And then he's got another friend who is a geologist. And what is the geologist saying to him?
Saying the same
Same
thing.
thing.
Saying the same thing. So here's Charles Darwin kind of sitting on this. He's got it. He continues to work. He's working for 20 years on this theory, but he's not doing anything about it. He's not publishing. He has his wife and his children to think about on one hand, but his friends are encouraging him, and he's truly, truly believing in the things that he's discovering. Do you remember he is so meticulous that he spent 8 years studying barnacles? And do you remember from last week, what are barnacles so incredibly good at?
They clean up.
Adapting.
Excellent, Bob, excellent. Adaptation. No matter what they adhere to, doesn't matter what, a boat, a whale, a rock, it doesn't matter. They survive. They adapt and develop a way to survive on that host, whatever the host is. So he's doing that for 8 years. A couple of things happen in his life that are the catalyst to getting him to finally publish. Do you remember from last week, Annie, his daughter? Yes, she died, and that shook him up. That shook him to his very core. She was 10 years old. She died of tuberculosis, and that shook him and shook his faith. And then immediately following that, this man, Alfred Wallace, independent of Darwin, was in Indonesia, and he's studying fossils, and he's studying other things, and he's coming up with a very similar theory. So he writes to Darwin, and Darwin's reading this, and he's saying, oh my gosh, this guy's going down my road.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't publish, what's going to happen?
Somebody else going to take up.
Yeah, he's going to beat him to it. And so in 1859, we have this. Yes, The Origin of Species, and it comes out to mixed reviews, remember?
Yeah.
He was expecting fire and brimstone, really. But he got mixed reviews, so he's very happy about that. So that was a relief. It was such a relief that it gave him the courage to continue on. Remember, in The Origin of Species, the word evolution does not appear until the 6th edition. The 6th edition, that's when it appears. He kind of glosses over it. He's got it in there, but not directly. You know, he's still
Going
being
around the barn.
Yeah, he went around the barn. Yeah, he went around. He went the long way around. So he didn't come right out and say it, but then subsequently we have the descent of man.
Wow.
Now, in that short period of time, remember this is his tombstone, and where is he buried?
Westminster.
Yeah,
Westminster
he's
Abbey.
buried in Westminster Abbey, not far from who?
Queen,
Queen.
Victoria.
Isaac Newton.
Oh, Isaac
Oh,
Newton.
they're all
Isaac
together.
Newton, yes, he's not far from Isaac Newton. And so in this very brief period of time, you have acceptance of this brand new idea. And that's astonishing. All right, so there's acceptance for it. So he doesn't just publish and start off this whole brand new area of thinking. He starts a whole brand new field of science, right?
Huh.
Now remember, this is brand new. This is new, okay? So they're just starting out. They're not sure of what they've got. They don't really know what they're doing. They have to just kind of trip through trial and error. But they've come up with an awful lot of what they believe to be true until they find something new. That's the important thing about science. Can it change
Yes.
on a dime?
Yes.
It can. What has to happen? What's the only thing that has to happen for science to completely change its mind? New evidence. That's exactly right, Edith. That's all they need, new evidence. So this is something that is just, this is what we've pulled together from what we have got. So I want to start you off with a time frame, okay? So some clever person decided to look at all of life, all of Earth's history, in a time frame as though it were on a clock within a 24-hour period. And it may surprise you to know, here it is. It may surprise you to know that human beings show up, do you see?
Right up there.
Human beings do not show up on Earth until 1 minute before midnight.
Wow.
Yes, it's a big wow. So, in the science's estimation, all right, here's the birth of the Earth, all right? And all this time where Earth is developing, and it's not until here, until you have plants. All right, you can follow it. You don't need me to read it to you. All right? And humans show up
Right there.
right there, a minute before midnight. And we think we know everything, don't we? We have not been here for very long, if this is correct. We have not been here for very long at all. Now today I'm going to focus in a particular area. I'm not going to go all the way back to here, all right? But you may have seen this. So somebody else comes up with this very quick way of seeing what scientists think is the entirety of evolution. I'm not going to cover all that. I would need more than a minute to cover all that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to do all of this. Do you recognize any of these time epochs?
Yeah.
Yes, you know, everyone knows Jurassic because there was a great movie about that. But I'm not even going to cover all of these because we're going to focus on what?
The evolution.
Human evolution, and we're going to be primarily in the Pleistocene period. All right? But I do want to share one little thing before we go there. One little thing, okay, before our time. Dinosaurs, you're all familiar with those, right? Dinosaurs, and you know that they went extinct how long ago?
75 million.
75 million years ago? Well, what would you say if I told you they're not extinct?
You're right.
Oh, they're birds.
You're right,
They're
birds. They're birds.
Well, let's take a look at that.
When an asteroid slammed into Earth 66 million years ago, only about 20% of all animal species survived. So, whatever happened to these lucky few? Birds come from a long line of survivors. It started millions of years before the asteroid strike with a dinosaur family called theropods. The theropod family featured reptilian specimens, some of which had bird-like traits, including feathers and three-toed feet. A distant cousin of theropods and today's birds was the Archaeopteryx. Fossils from Germany date the animal to about 150 million years ago, and they show how the animal may have even had both reptilian and avian traits. Many ancient birds would also exhibit this mishmash of traits, but eventually, some of these avian dinosaurs evolved to have more recognizably bird-like characteristics. One example is the sparrow-sized Sinornis santensis, discovered in China around 1990. The archaic creature is considered one of the first birds capable of flight. In 1992, a new specimen was discovered in Antarctica. Called Vegavis ii, the 67-million-year-old creature may have looked like a duck and sounded like one. The fossil included a vocal organ called a syrinx, which is only found in today's quacking waterfowl. About 1 million years after the time of Vegavis ii, the asteroid struck Earth and redirected the evolutionary paths of many animals, including birds. 3 bird groups of the theropod family managed to make it through such a cataclysmic event, and scientists are still uncertain as to how. Ever since, birds have been able to adapt and evolve, eventually blooming into the over 10,000 species alive today. So the next time you're looking out at your bird feeder, remember that you're looking at the modern-day dinosaurs.
Interesting, right?
Right.
And very interesting. All right, but now we have to get back to our 1 minute before midnight. Okay, 1 minute before midnight is who?
Us.
All right, yes, the species called the Australopithecine. All right, the hominid, the genus of hominid, the first man-like species. Now, here's something interesting. Oh, it got cut off a little bit there. But so you see the Australopithecus is here, and do you see how they overlap?
Yes.
Isn't that an interesting thought? Because we don't think of ourselves as, we're just the only species, right? We're the only ones. Isn't it difficult to think that there might have been a time when there were more than one species?
There were.
Yeah, that's when, yeah, see? Isn't that weird? to think of? There's different species.
Yeah.
So the Australopithecine are more than one. You have Australopithecus afarensis, africanus, robustus. They just keep going. There's a whole bunch of them. And what puts them in that category? What is a distinctive feature that makes them an Australopithecus?
They stand up.
Stand up. Yep.
You're so smart. You're all so smart. Bipedalism.
Yeah.
I like his strut. What do you think?
It's all right.
Yeah, he's got some swag.
Got some rhythm.
Yes, he does. He's got some rhythm. So it is bipedalism, bipeds. That's what makes a different category, a different species. And why would any species stand up?
So they could see and see their enemies and see food and all of that stuff.
Now, why would they do that if they'd been successfully in the trees for so long? Why would all of a sudden they want to do that? The reason is because at this time, in this point in history, the savanna is starting to lose its forest, all right? So you have some trees, but they're spreading out more, all right? And then as more time goes by, the protection of the trees aren't readily available. This is according to the theory, all right? The trees are not available, so if a predator is coming after them, they can't quickly get away and get into that protection. So you're right, Effie, the thought is by standing, you would have more awareness of your surroundings. And here are some more advantages of bipedalism. So to get around more effectively,
Across landscape. Yeah.
what else develops?
Start using your hands.
Their
Yeah.
hands to make
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. So it comes, they think, from the bareness of the savanna, and all of these advantages are coming along with the standing up and standing upright. The most famous Australopithecine is, any guesses?
Lucy.
Yes, Lucy, there she is. There's Lucy. And so you can see the bipedalism in this fossil. See right here? Her hip bone?
Yeah.
Okay, so here is a human hip bone. All right, and this is the hip bone of an animal. And if I go back, what does Lucy's look like?
Half and half.
It's half and half.
So we know that she stood up. We know that she stood up. She had to stand up, and that she was predominantly walking on 2 feet. And then I had to share with you too. All right, so she's discovered in Ethiopia and is thought to be 3.2 million years old. But why on earth would I have the Beatles in this slide? Do you see them down here?
Well, they had a song.
Look at, you see the Beatles are there. Why would I do such a crazy thing? Lucy is named because the crew that were on that excavation, they had to, on the radio, listen over and over and over again to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was the song of that year, and it was being played repeatedly over and over again. And so the crew named her Lucy. Yeah, that is why she's called Lucy. So what else would distinguish them?
They started making tools.
Oh my gosh, you guys, you're so good. Now see, you didn't need me to do it, to do this, you know. Yes, tools, they were using tools. Yep. Now, chimps will use sticks for tools. They'll get, they can get ants out of trees and stuff, but they were fashioning in a crude, archaic way. They were fashioning these tools. These are Oldowan stone tools. They're very simple. See how simple they are? So they are fashioned for sure, but not with any real skill. They're clunky tools, but still they are tools nevertheless. And we've got the Australopithecine species using this, let's call it technology, because they're tools, using this technology. And then all of a sudden, there's a jump. There's a big jump, and it's a mystery. And so what we've got from the Australopithecine is, next goes into Homo habilis, or Homo erectus, and it just means, Homo habilis means handyman, and Homo erectus just means upright man, and they make a leap, all right, they make a great leap forward, and so we're going to take a look at them. Now look at the skulls. You can see the brain size increases over time, and there are several species of Homo erectus that are coexisting. They're coexisting together. Now, probably the most famous of Homo erectus was found in Indonesia. Do you recall Java Man?
Yeah.
Do you remember Java Man?
Yeah.
All right, so he's found right here. They actually don't really even understand what they have at the time. They have to come back and look at that later as they gain more information. But he's found in Java in 1891 or 92, and then I just had to give you a photo because, well, I like you all, and I want you to see these beautiful things that I find. So they have to go back and look for more once they really realize and start understanding that they've got something really different here. And they do, and so they find some more skeletons, and they're placing them, this is a wide range, but they're placing them in this time frame right here. Very interesting, right? So what they've got now is we're looking for, now we're going to go on the hunt. We're going to go looking for these things because we've got these unusual, they're not human skeletons, but they're not apes. They don't know what they are. So they're going on the hunt for these things. And then subsequent to Java Man, we have, who's this? Do you know? Peking Man, yes, and he's found in a cave near Beijing. And this is the cave. This is the excavated cave. This is from the inside looking out of the cave. Do you know that they have a museum there on site right now?
They must have. They've got it all fenced in.
Yeah, there's a museum there. Here's the museum. All right, so they find Peking Man, and then they too go back into the cave. And I mean, they have to go in these dig down into, it's terrifying where they go to look for these things, just scary. But they go in there and they are coming up with all kinds of other things. So what they're finding in the skulls of Homo erectus, look at the brow ridge. See that? See the brow ridge? This black here is putty that they're filling in because they're not finding whole things. They're so old. But the brow ridge is very, very pronounced. And you'll find that further into the future, another species, Cro-Magnon, now look what happens.
The brow
Isn't that incredible? Look at the difference.
develops a forehead.
Yes, yes. So this predominant brow ridge disappears by the time we get to Neanderthal. Still has it, but by the time we get to Cro-Magnon, it's just really basically gone. It's just disappeared. And so it's so striking. It's so striking that scientists are wondering why. Like, what would be the benefit of losing that brow ridge? And
More brains.
what?
More brains.
More brains?
More or less.
That's not what they came up with. It could be, it could be. Remember, the more they find, the more, this is fluid science here.
Was it because the eyes got better?
Well, what they
Stronger?
think is that, what's a universal language? What is a good way to communicate?
Your eyes.
With facial expressions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't have the language, or you aren't able to speak to one another articulately, what could you use
Your eyeballs.
in order to, you use facial expressions.
Jesus.
And the eyebrows are especially good at that. Now, she's using her eyebrows very effectively here. Now, speaking of expression, scientists actually think, now you tell me, okay? Scientists think that Homo erectus express themselves artistically. And they base this on, can you see this shell? It's very faint. This is a shell, and it's got scratched lines in it. Can you see that?
Yes.
And could that be art? And a reason why they're thinking that is because it's not just here. Look at this. It's the same kind of scratching. Could it be an archaic language or symbol or art? It's speculative, isn't it? Isn't it? But there's definitely scratchings on these things, and these artifacts are found at a layer of earth that would place them to be hundreds of thousands of years old. So it lands in the Homo erectus category. Now, this is a tool with some art on it, and then they also found this. What might that be?
Figure of a woman.
It's a figure.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does, and of course it's been eroded after so many years. But could that be
A sculpture.
art?
Could be.
Could it be art from the? Yeah,
It's a woman.
It is a woman,
Without a neck.
it's a woman without a neck.
but she's got breasts.
And who knows? I'm guessing it could have been a lot better when it was originally carved. I think it's weathered some.
I think so.
Yeah, it's probably weathered a little bit. But yeah, so they're placing that in the time frame of Homo erectus, which is pretty astounding. And we also have Homo erectus, as I said, made a giant leap in technology. And when I say that, I'm talking about these tools. Look at these tools.
Wow. We've come a long way.
It's very different from the older one, right?
Yeah.
All right, so these are the Acheulean tools, and these are much more difficult to bang out.
Yeah, they're more sophisticated too.
they're-
What region of the world is that?
These are from Africa.
And this is all
Yeah,
African.
these are from Africa.
That's where we came from.
And these are really very thin. So they're thin, they're sharp, they're like razor sharp. All right, so these are knives, and they're spearheads, arrowheads, and you have to flank them just in the right way, otherwise they're gonna break apart. So the technology to do this is highly skilled. You have to be highly skilled to produce these. So a lot of thought has gone into them. Here's some spearheads.
There must have been a great span of years to get from one point to another.
Well, what happens is you find the older one in a layer, and then boom, you find this. So there's something will be discovered.
Okay,
All right, we're gonna wait on that.
all
They
right.
look more like weapons than,
Oh yeah, for hunting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
hunting.
They need knives to, they need these, they're tools. and weapons. Now here's something that's truly astonishing. This is astonishing. So it is Homo erectus that is using bone tools, but do you see, this is the same thing from different angles. Do you see the barbs?
Are those bar? Oh,
Is that a fishing hook?
could be. That's interesting.
So see how thin it is? It's the same thing, it's just being shown from a different angle.
I see.
All right, it's not four things, it's one thing shown from every side. So you see how thin it is,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's barbed here. It's cut out. Now would that be? Come on, guys. Does anyone go fishing here?
Oh, yeah.
Would that? Oh, Peggy, I'm sorry. My apologies. Would that be a good fishing tool?
Harpoon.
A harpoon or something, right? Isn't that fascinating? Yes, that's fascinating. It's also within this time range, that they lost their hair.
They lost their hair.
They lost their hair.
Oh,
What would be a benefit, and I'm not even going to tell you how they know, because it's super gross.
super gross.
It's very gross.
Okay.
I decided to just not.
You're gonna skip over that part.
We'll skip over that. Suffice it to say, they place it here in Homo erectus. All right, so what would be the benefits of that? Well, they're saying that, and remember they're still in a warm area, a warm climate. The benefits would be, if you don't have hair and you need to cool down your body, what do? We sweat.
Yeah.
So without hair, you're able to sweat, and if you're able to sweat, you can cool yourself down, and then what you can also do is you can do long distance sustained running.
Yeah.
And what they would do is they would chase down
The animals.
their prey, whatever animal that they were going after, to exhaustion. They could do it, they could sustain themselves, but an animal who's on all fours and covered in fur, how do they cool down? They have to pant.
Yeah.
They have to pant. And they cannot pant while they're running. So they have to stop in order to cool their body temperature down. So this sustained chasing that the human can do, that the hominid could do, is going to wear them down to exhaustion. Can they then come in?
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
All right, so that's what is the theory behind that, and there are tribes to this day that hunt that way. So there are still tribes that hunt that way. So lost the hair, gained a benefit in that way. However, I have a feeling that their future generations might not have appreciated that. Those that migrated north during the Ice Age, not so much.
No.
Not so good. It's also Homo erectus that is believed to have controlled what?
Fire.
Fire. To have had control of fire and been able to ignite fire on their own. They are also believed to have cooked their meat, right? What's the benefit of cooking your food?
Precisely.
Preserving it, I guess.
Yes, it kills bacteria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And then does your brain get more protein?
Yes.
Yeah. And so all of these things were helping to develop a larger brain. They are also, and fire would protect you, wouldn't it? It would keep you warm, and it would protect you against
From the
predators.
animals.
Yeah, against other animals. All right, and they have evidence that it's the Homo erectus that were cave dwellers. So that one's pretty easy, but the next one is going to blow your mind. It's just going to blow your mind. Scientists now think that it is likely that Homo erectus was seafaring.
They were?
Really?
Really,
I didn't know that.
really, they are thinking that they may have created log canoes, some kind of course, if it's made out of wood, we're not going to have it, right? It's something very rare if wood stays the test of time. But the reason why they think that is because we have archaic tools, the tools that we've already taken a look at. They are finding these archaic tools in places like the island of Flores. Remember, we know that Homo erectus was in Indonesia, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then we find tools here. So how did they get there?
Oh, that's a,
Took a plane.
he took a plane.
Geologists say that there was not a land mass at that time, that it was separated from the mainland. So it was an island surrounded by water. All right, but in this area, here I go again, showing you beautiful photographs, that they found these archaic tools. They found quite a few of them. Another one, okay, up here. All right, yeah, they've also found tools and other artifacts on islands in the Philippines. Here you go. Another one. But it's this next one that is most astonishing of all, because of how far away it is to any other land. They have found tools and artifacts in Crete.
Oh my goodness.
Great.
The Greeks got into that too?
The Greeks were into everything, right, Effie?
God.
They were into everything. You can't leave them out of anything. Yes. Look at the distance. I mean, that's quite far. So even if, like, you are thinking, could they swim from one island to another? Were they close enough for them to? There's no
way.
There's no explaining this. There's
No.
just no explaining it away. And so it's a mystery. It's a mystery. And so they're not saying that Homo erectus was seafaring. They're wondering, were they? Because how did this stuff get there? Is it possible that, somebody else that was seafaring found a whole bunch of cool spearheads and brought them with them and buried them? I don't know, but they're just wondering, how did these things get here? Could they? Could they? And the answer is that their brains were big enough that it would be possible. It would be possible. And of course, Effie, I would never neglect showing you all a photo of Crete.
Here it is.
So if that is true, if that's true, then you don't just like willy-nilly follow someone into the ocean, right?
No.
No, you just would not do that. So it would require a little bit of cooperation, right? Yes, you'd have to coordinate, and you would have to collaborate, and you would have to cooperate, whatever word I didn't say yet. And that all boils down to what?
Communication.
Yes, communication. So did they speak? Did they have an articulate language? Well, the answer is they did not, because in the fossil remains, they don't have the hyoid bone developed enough for anything but like a guttural sounds. But it does not seem to have stopped them from communicating and creating a community, a society, because they've also found remains that demonstrate and insinuate that they took care of one another, that they really care for one another as a community. For example, they found the skull of a man who was in his 40s, which is really old in those days. That's really super old. And he had no teeth. And they knew that he hadn't had teeth for many years because of, they could see that it had all grown over and healed. All right? So if you have no teeth and you've had no teeth for a long time, how could you survive? Somebody had to take care of you, right? There's plenty of examples like that. There are injuries where they could see in the bone that it had healed. All right, the bone had healed over. That would take time. And what's going to happen while you're in recovery, somebody's got to take care of you. There was another example of this where there was a child, the skull of a child. They know from the teeth, they can tell your age from the teeth. And this was a child who had clearly had a birth injury to their brain. But the skull of the child, and from the dental record, this child was over 5 years old. So they didn't see a birth defect and abandon the child. They cared for this child for at least 5 years. So it seems like they had a community, and they must have had a way of communicating with one another and relating to one another. And then it is also Homo erectus that has what seems to be a burial site. Oh, Effie, you just jumped right in there. Good for you. So they seem to have mourned and grieved the loss of one of their clan. And there are sites that they age into the Homo erectus that are very carefully placed. They're laid very carefully. There's also red ochre resin. So did they paint the body or decorate in some way? And there's also floral resin. Did they put flowers? Again, you can't ever know. How can you ever know? But it's just what these remnants suggest to us. So next week, do you feel like you're all caught up?
Sure.
Next week, we are going to have Neanderthal meet Cro-Magnon.
That should be interesting.
All right, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, that's what we're going to do next week. All right, so thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, John, and I will see you next week.
Yeah.